Welcome back to another video on Phone Buddy. Today we'll talk about a line called the Google Nexus, a line of electronics Google made in collaboration with other brands. Let's talk about its evolution and failure. Let's begin. The Nexus 1, launched in early 2010 in collaboration with HTC, marked the birth of the Nexus. It had a 3.7-inch AMOLED 480 by 800 screen, 5 megapixel camera, Qualcomm Snapdragon S1 chipset, 512 megabytes of storage, 512 megabytes of RAM, Android 2.1 Eclair, and a 1400 mAh battery. In late 2010, Samsung and Google launched the Nexus S. It had a 4-inch AMOLED 480 by 800 screen, Hummingbird chipset, and ran Android 2.3 Gingerbread. Had 512 megabytes of RAM and 16 gigabytes of storage, 5 megapixel camera, VGA selfie camera, and 1500 mAh battery. They launched several models like the 4G model, i9023 and i9028 in 2011. In late 2011, Samsung and Google launched the Galaxy Nexus. It had a 4.65-inch AMOLED 720 by 1080 display, 720 by 1280 display, TI OMA 4460 chipset, Android 4 ice cream sandwich, 1 gig of RAM, 5 megapixel camera, 1.3 megapixel selfie camera, 16 gigabytes of storage, and a 1750 mAh battery. The peak of the Nexus started in 2012 when LG and Google launched the Nexus 4. It had a 4.7-inch 768 by 1280 display, 8 megapixel camera, 1.3 megapixel selfie camera, 2 gigabytes of RAM, 8 or 16 gigabytes of storage, 2100 mAh battery, Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Pro, and Android 4.2 Jelly Bean. In 2013, LG and Google launched the Nexus 5. It had a 5-inch 1080p by 90 display, 8 megapixel camera, 1.3 megapixel selfie camera, 2300 mAh battery, 16 or 32 gigabytes of storage, 2 gigabytes of RAM, Android 4.4 KitKat, and a Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 chip. In 2014, Motorola and Google launched the Nexus 6. Had a huge 6-inch Quad HD display, 2 megapixel selfie camera, 13 megapixel main camera, 3 gigabytes of RAM, 32 or 64 gigabytes of storage, 3220 mAh battery, and a Qualcomm Snapdragon 805. It ran Android 5 Lollipop. Despite being a great device in terms of hardware, it was criticized for its high price. The Nexus 5 was priced at $350. This set you back $600. The last Nexus came in 2015. The LG Nexus 5X and its older brother, the Huawei Nexus 6P. The 5X had a 5.2-inch 1080p display, 12 megapixel camera, 5 megapixel selfie camera, Android 6 Marshmallow, 2 gigabytes of RAM, 16 or 32 gigabytes of storage, Qualcomm Snapdragon 808 chip, and a 2700 mAh battery. 5X suffered from boot looping issues, as with LG's own G4 launched that year. The 6P, on the other hand, had a 5.7-inch Quad HD display, 12 megapixel camera, 8 megapixel selfie camera, 32 or 64 or 128 gigabytes of storage, 3 gigabytes of RAM, 3,450 milliamp hour battery, Snapdragon 810, and Android 6 Marshmallow. There are also tablets, which were the HTC Nexus 9, Samsung Nexus 10, and Asus Nexus 7. In late 2012, they launched the Nexus Q. Nexus Q. I don't have a photo, but that's the Nexus Q is a flop. It was a portable media device that cost like a console. It had unoptimized software, Android 4 ice cream sandwich, and only allowed you to stream from Google services like YouTube, play music, and play movies. In the photo is the Nexus Player, developed in collaboration between Google and Asus. It was the first, launched in 2014. It was the first ever device to run a specially optimized software for TVs, Android TV. The Nexus line was discontinued in 2016 and replaced with the Pixel. This was due to many factors. Nexuses were aimed at developers, not the mass market. The Pixel had more consumer-driven features, like Google Assistant integration and AI-powered cameras. Pixels were more widely available while Nexuses were only online. Plus, Google won more control over the experience and compete head-on with Apple and Samsung. The Pixel A series, a more affordable version with the Pixel, which started with the Pixel 3a in 2019, is the spiritual successor to the Nexus, as well as Android One, a program where Google would work with brands to make stock Android-powered devices, and those devices would be guaranteed 2 years of Android updates and 3 years of security updates. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'd really appreciate it if you did that. Goodbye.